Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Gamey Daddy channel. Today we're going to be talking about Ghost of Tsushima. We're going to be looking at the combat mechanics. We're going to be looking at a lot of things that kind of correlate, and it's almost too interesting to see. Now, if you're somebody who's allergic to like a teaspoon of spoilers, or it's a small spoiler, but it's actually pretty awesome. So I would say just save yourself the stress and click away from the video. But if you really don't care, let's talk about this. So one really interesting thing about Ghost of Tsushima and its development and development cycle is it was actually first teased in 2015 by a Sony executive. If you watch my last video about the Metacritic scores, we saw that. Now, the first time this game was actually spoken about was around 2015. And so possibly this game was probably in development a year before, or perhaps had just started that year. If you go back and look at just one fun mechanic that you have in Ghost of Tsushima right now as you're progressing through the story, it's called a ghost stance. It's a stance that is acquired once you have a kill streak of bad guys without taking any damage. And then once you activate this, this move, you basically can one tap all enemy NPCs that are around you. It's basically absolute brutal, murder mode. The screen goes black and white, and every single person that he touches, they melt. Now, what's really interesting was once I first got this, the way you get it, I mean, for those of you who are playing the game, is immediately you take out one of these bad guys and, in front of his men and in front of the people that you're trying to save, Jin goes crazy to put on a big show to show them that, they have the strength to take out these, these invading Mongols. And he goes explosive on them and one taps and one shots everybody while in this mode. Now, one really interesting thing is this same kind of mode is actually available in another video game that has influenced a lot of combat in many other video games since its release, and that is Batman Arkham. Now, you may be like, what? Ghost of Tsushima is borrowed from the Arkham games? Perhaps. If you look very closely, Ghost of Tsushima, like I said in my other video, the first time it was mentioned was in 2015. There was a big video game that came out in 2015, and that was Batman Arkham Knight. In Batman Arkham Knight, one of the characters you can play as about 6 different characters and different of the end game modes that you have is Harley Quinn. Many people don't know she is actually one of the best fighters in the game, and she has that same mode of some kind. It's called the mayhem mode. When you've gathered enough takedowns of bad guys, this is not just hits, this is basically, takedowns, just like the way you have it in Ghost of Tsushima. Once you take out an enemy NPC, this meter starts to fill up. In the same case, you have it here in the Batman game as well. And once it hits, once the meter is full, you hit the mayhem button. And if you basically press A, X, or square, or whatever, is it A? On the Xbox controller, it's X, sorry. Once you press X or once you press square, it's an instant takedown for the enemy NPC, depending on what weapon they're wielding, or depending on if they have a shield. If they have a shield, it's a one tap. If they have a gun, it's like she pushes them, she basically maneuvers them, slams them to the ground. It's a one tap. Now, why is this so cool? Well, one thing about video games is, we look at Ghost of Tsushima and it has a lot of unique aspects to it. It has the fact that they're bringing, basically an ode to a movie director, and, all these other fun things that they're doing. Combat mechanics that are based on precision, timing, an open world that's beautiful. Well, set though in feudal Japan, and a whole bunch of other things that it brings to the table. Doesn't have an XP meter, the way you level up your character is by using different kinds of RPG elements that are basically in the background, using wind as a guide for your navigation. To me, all these things are actually pretty good. They're quite interesting, but it's really interesting to see much more that this game sought to borrow a mechanic or sought to use a mechanic similar. I'm not saying that they borrowed, I don't know this, but the mechanic is just too similar to not say that this was borrowed from the Arkham games. And, you know, the Arkham games came out in 2015, and I'm sure these guys were in the studios or in their homes, you know, talking about how the Arkham games were. Now, one thing I really, you know, noticed is for gamers, we're not too impressed with video games. And I think the reason we're not too impressed is because we're flooded. The market is just so flooded with them right now. And, you know, if we could look from the perspective of the developer, or if you try to maybe animate one motion of a game character, maybe that would give a little bit of perspective to see the amount of work that they do. I can guarantee you that the designers and devs at Sucker Punch were looking at Arkham Knight going, man, this game is crazy with the combat. And putting that element in there, in my opinion, is basically a salute to the Arkham games. There are other mechanics that are Arkham similar in a sense, you know, moves that you gain, that you trigger once you have enough resolve or enough meter. You know, Batman Arkham games were, you know, kind of I wouldn't say the pioneers, but they did a very good job to make those, those mechanics in combat very, very strong and very, very satisfying for the player. And in Ghost of Tsushima, once you trigger any of those moves that you acquire, because you have to acquire them, it's not like, you know, you get enough XP like the Arkham games. Once you get enough XP, you get these points and then the points level you up. No, you have to carry out specific tasks for you to be able to gain these special moves or special, blitz moves or whatever they are. And once you do them, you feel the satisfaction from the fact that this is a powerful move. You don't just use it every time. And anytime you get it and have the opportunity to use it, you have to think about it. You just don't waste it, if you understand what I mean. So once you start to check off the things that come with combat in Ghost of Tsushima, and even how they've wisely taken from other games, it is hands down, in my opinion, the game that we needed in 2018. Because I don't know many of you who know, or many of you don't know, I'm a huge Batman fan. I have a whole separate YouTube channel dedicated to that kind of content. And so for me to have seen this, there is no way I wasn't going to catch. In fact, this clip of Harley Quinn that you're seeing, I basically went back and played it again this afternoon, because once I saw it, I was like, yeah, I got to get a little bit of Batman gameplay going. And I do have a lot of footage with it, but I thought, why not just get fresh footage and see how good looking Arkham is, see how, polished it is. And I am playing this on, PC. So compared to, my Ghost of Tsushima footage, yes, there will be a difference and a variance in frame rates. But it's really astounding how video games influence one another, and how a developer can take a concept or a mechanic from one game and implement it in another game that is totally different, where if somebody who hasn't played both games or invested a lot of time in both games sees them, they won't even know that this is a trope from another. Now, I have to also say, I was speaking to a friend today about Ghost of Tsushima, and they were telling me they saw IGN's review and said IGN kind of compared some aspects of the combat to Batman Arkham. And I said, okay, I guess I haven't seen any. But once I saw that one was, for real Arkham Knight nerds, that was too much to ignore. I had to make a video about it at risk of putting some spoilers out there, even if I tried my best to not spoil much for you guys. But it's just one of those things where I just had to talk about it and talk about the genius level development and mechanic implementation from Sucker Punch for this game. Anyways, that's basically the end of this video. I appreciate you guys so much. Thanks for the support through the past videos. You guys are really amazing. If you're new to this channel, you can hit the subscribe button if you want or not. If my videos come up on your feed, just feel free to watch them. Feel free to comment if you want. So let me get out of your hair. If you're playing the game, get back to playing. I'm going to get back to playing. Hopefully we'll see in another video. Peace.